Bright lights, glittering gowns, cameras flashing in every direction. The 2025 Beijing International Film and Television Gala was a celebration of stardom, a stage for grace, talent, and triumph. But what no one could have foreseen was the moment everything stopped. Not due to a scandal, not a shocking speech, but because one woman fell, and one man caught her before the world could even react. That evening, Tan Songyun didn't just walk into the gala. She floated. Her dress wasn't extravagant, but it didn't need to be. The soft ivory fabric, cut just right at the shoulders and flowing like moonlight to the floor, seemed to say, "I don't need to shout to be remembered." Her poise, her smile, it was effortless elegance. But it wasn't just her beauty that captivated the crowd. It was the undercurrent of exhaustion behind her eyes. The kind only a few would notice, maybe only one person did. Sitting next to her, Sukai looked sharp in a custom black tuxedo. But what set him apart from the other men in designer suits was the way he looked at her. Not with admiration, but with quiet concern. Throughout the night, fans caught subtle interactions. A gentle nudge of the elbow. A shared laugh during a break in performances. She leaned closer to whisper something, and he nodded, the corner of his mouth lifting ever so slightly. To the untrained eye, it was just casual banter between co-stars. But to anyone who had followed their journey in Eternal Moonlight, there was something different. Something intimate. Backstage, sources later shared that Sukai had arrived earlier than scheduled. Not for press. Not for photos. But because he wanted to be there to greet Tan when she arrived. He waited by the entrance, keeping his phone close, checking the time more than once. When she finally stepped out of the car, he didn't wave. He didn't smile wide. He simply walked up and offered his hand. Steady, calm, familiar. Tan Songyun took it without hesitation. A wordless language. That night they barely said a word on camera. But they didn't need to. When she won applause for her latest role, Sukai clapped the longest, even though he wasn't nominated himself. When photographers called their names, he instinctively adjusted her train before stepping aside so she could shine alone. And when she laughed at a joke from the host, he was already looking at her, as if her laughter was the only punchline he needed. To many, this was just another awards night. To them, it may have been the quiet before a storm they didn't know was coming. The weight she carried. Behind that luminous smile, Tan had been pushing herself for weeks. Multiple photo shoots, non-stop filming, press interviews, commercial events. She was the industry's darling. But even stars burn out when they burn too bright for too long. Close friends later shared she had been feeling lightheaded in the days leading up to the gala, but refused to cancel. She didn't want to let the team down, one crew member said. She kept saying, "I'll rest after the awards." But rest would come, not on her terms. And in the moments leading up to her collapse, she leaned into Sukai just a little more than usual. He noticed. He always noticed. The energy inside the auditorium was electric. As the host walked back onto the stage, the atmosphere swelled with anticipation. Every nominee waited with bated breath, their names echoing across the grand hall. The crowd erupted with cheers, standing to honor the newly announced winner for Best Asian Actress. A prestigious title that marked years of dedication, sacrifice, and resilience. But amidst that standing ovation, something was off. Tan Songyun wasn't clapping. She wasn't even standing. At first it looked like she was simply taking a breath. Her shoulders rose and fell in a slow, controlled rhythm. She blinked a few times, as if trying to refocus on the stage lights that had suddenly begun to blur before her eyes. Sukai, still beside her, leaned in slightly, noticing her hand gripping the armrest just a bit too tightly. And then in less than a heartbeat, her head dropped forward, her body tilted sideways, and the world around her slipped into silence. Instincts, not scripts. Before the audience could even gasp, Sukai was already moving. Like muscle memory kicking in, he reached out with both arms and caught her mid-fall, wrapping her in an instinctive embrace. No hesitation. No confusion. Only focus, raw, urgent, and completely unfiltered. A hush rippled through the crowd. The applause stopped. The cameras paused. Every eye turned toward the pair now frozen at the center of the spotlight. But this time, not for glory. Sukai gathered Tan Songyun into his arms like a soldier shielding someone from an explosion. She was unconscious, her arm limp over his shoulder, her face pale under the gala lighting. The sound of silence. No music played. No host intervened. It was as if the entire auditorium, filled with industry giants' glittering gowns and polished egos, held its breath for one vulnerable human moment. One person stood. Then another. But no one moved closer. They all watched, unable to look away, as Sukai lifted Tan with deliberate gentleness and began walking down the aisle. The longest walk. He didn't wait for help. He didn't call for assistance or medics. He didn't ask for directions to the medical wing. He simply walked, holding her like something fragile and priceless, through a crowd that suddenly remembered how human even the brightest stars could be. Fellow actors and actresses instinctively stepped aside, lowering their eyes, some even placing their hands over their hearts. Many had worked with Tan. Many had seen her push herself to meet impossible deadlines. But none had seen her like this. A love hidden in action. There was something poetic in the way Sukai held her, one arm under her knees, the other supporting her back. But even more striking was the way he looked at her face the entire time, whispering words no mic could pick up, words he didn't care were seen. His tuxedo, tailored for photo ops, now looked creased and disheveled. But he didn't care. His only concern was her. Later, a fellow attendee would tell reporters, he didn't carry her like a hero. He carried her like a man terrified he was already too late. The curtain falls. When they reached the backstage exit, the press and photographers were too stunned to follow. No one dared break the moment. And just like that, the most unforgettable performance of the night wasn't a scene from a drama, wasn't on the official schedule, and wasn't meant to be performed, but it was real. And the audience knew they had just witnessed something far more powerful than any scripted story. As Sukai pushed through the heavy velvet curtain leading off stage, the bustle of the gala faded behind him. The backstage corridor was dimly lit and eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the glitz and glamour just meters away. Paramedics rushed forward, but Sukai refused to let go. "Let me stay," he said, his voice cracking but steady. "I'll carry her to the ambulance." The medical team, seeing the raw urgency in his eyes, didn't argue. They checked her vitals on the move. A pulse weak but present. Shallow breathing. Signs of complete exhaustion, both physical and emotional. Inside the ambulance, Sukai sat on the floor beside her stretcher, holding her hand. He whispered again and again, "Don't leave me. Don't you dare." At the Beijing International Hospital, he insisted on staying through the night. He didn't post on social media. He didn't notify his manager. He simply disappeared from the public eye for her. And when reporters later asked him why, his reply was just 5 quiet words. Because she would have done the same. After she was rushed to Beijing International Hospital, Sukai insisted on riding in the ambulance with her, turning down his personal car and security team. Once there, he requested a private VIP room and remained at her bedside for 2 days straight. No change of clothes. No sleep. He curled up on a narrow hospital bench, ignored phone calls, even those from his own manager. When fans learned of her condition, the hashtag Tan Songyun immediately trended on Weibo and Asian Twitter, as netizens flooded the internet with prayers, support, and speculation. Was this just friendship? Or had something deeper always been hiding behind the curtains of Eternal Moonlight? Crew members from the drama set had often hinted at something special between the two. They shared stories, how Sukai would bring Tan herbal teas when she lost her voice, how she'd laugh at his clumsy Mandarin during rehearsals, how they'd linger on set long after filming had wrapped. But neither of them had ever confirmed anything. Until now, maybe. Days later, someone close to the hospital staff revealed a handwritten note that Sukai had quietly left at Tan's bedside, tucked under a bouquet of fresh chrysanthemums. It read, "If I could bear your pain and live this for you, I'd do it without hesitation." It was never given to the media. It wasn't a press release or PR stunt. It was just found quietly, lovingly, and it told more truth than any interview ever could. This moment didn't go viral because of shock value. It went viral because of sincerity. Because in a world of curated photos, brand deals, and perfectly timed announcements, this moment felt raw, real, heartbreaking. Was it love? Was it friendship forged in the fires of fame? Or was it something even deeper? A connection that doesn't need a label? The world may never know. But for that one night, Sukai showed us what it means to show up when it matters most. Sukai once said in an older interview, "Sometimes the most charming people are also the most fragile. We smile because we're expected to, but we're human too." And that night at the gala, humanity was all anyone could see. This wasn't just a fainting spell. It wasn't just an awards night. It was a moment that revealed something we often forget. That even under the spotlight, even behind perfect smiles, people can break. But if we're lucky, someone will catch us when we do. Do you believe what happened was a sign of deep romantic feelings? Or just a beautiful friendship built through shared experiences in the tough world of entertainment? Let us know in the comments below. Your voice matters and we'd love to hear your take. Closing message: call to action. If this story moved you, even just a little, please don't forget to like the video, drop a comment with your thoughts, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you won't miss more heartfelt stories from the world of Asian entertainment. Thank you for watching, and remember, even in the spotlight, we all need someone who stays when the lights go out.